Okay, I promised a police-related video about my opinion. Even before I confirmed that the Seattle Green Party or Front for Trumpy Chan running special services for him, I was appalled that Real Change newspaper had staff, virulent, viperous-looking persons, with signs over their desks saying, you talk to police and we will kill you, or some variation of that sort of thing. Of course, I know as a layman and a student who went to police academy for a while, the equivalent of a generic police academy, I should say, my community college, which specialized in those sort of courses for people who were interested. I had the lovely privilege of studying closely in the honors department with a sergeant. Um, I know from these experiences with police departments that there's nothing to be scared of in talking to the police because they're not about to listen to, you know? So these snivelers, who evidently are extremely violent snivelers, at places like Real Change, threatening people who are already traumatized, don't talk to the police, have their heads somewhere that needs to be evaluated by courtesy individuals. Because you can't talk to police. So what's the big deal? You walk into the police department and say something to them, and they're like, oh, get out of here. So I mean, I have no respect for them. And it's not the police I don't respect. It's the groovies who scare people about the police. So, well, the police can be scary too. I mean, everybody knows that. It's in the news. I don't need to add my. I'm not trying to be a sycophant to the police department, far from it. But I don't need to add my voice to the hullabaloo because I've seen some other things that are going on. So when we look at the COVID bomb and how it followed up the AIDS attack, we know that there's witnesses. Marge Peckman, the magistrate, the judge down there, is a witness. She heard KCO2-623 from me. And Rod Dabrowski has been reading letters about what happened for years. They can't sanitize. I mean, not just that they poisoned me in the mouth. They can't sanitize that they called a nerve agent genetic schizophrenia. And these are the groovies of the West Coast. All my life I've been hearing about the West Coast and how groovy they are. These are what the groovies of the West Coast do. Who's responsible for that? The administration of places like University of Washington are responsible. So, because they're the ones who sit on high as the ultimate poachers, allowing their faculty to play word games openly, contract on their students for torture if they are an object like I am. And the police department yawn, kick up their feet. And the friendly neighborhood poachers in places like Real Change say, well, it's automatic. I'll get my 45 out if you try to question that. So people need to go through StoryChecks.org and get the evidence in sort of expert arrangements. Ask the Smithsonian scholars to do it who are part of the brothers from another movie, so to speak, who aren't agog with Stephen King, George Romero, and Yoko Ono. Wow! The Trumpy Toon Yinzerland of Disney behind all of this catastrophe. And they know the world's a big place. We'll move on. Surely we will. I mean, Greta Thunberg made her Trumpy Toon story for the reasoning behind it. Okay, we need ecology. My records have shown I've been arguing for ecology since I went to school for the first time in the 80s, early 80s, and they were like, poor little Jimmy, the Aquarian. Forget it. You have to change the curriculum. My father was in higher education curriculum development. And there was a ruckus about letting black people into schools. Not all of the black people liked him because you start seeing this stuff. I don't want to get into it, okay? Because the brothers from another movie need to know what just happened to our grannies. So what you need to do is get it correlated properly and identify the specific people and find out who's allowing it and go over the heads of the people who are like the low lives who, very cruelly use their hypocrisy. I mean, you're talking about shifty people whose ventriloquism is relatively easy to mind read. And find the authorities who are playing the game of covering for them and arrest them and make clear that they are suspected. Because the way the due process works is through an evaluation of evidence. And what these hardwire experts with their needle nose plier to the nostrils of the golem, twisting and squeezing and setting off missiles around America as signal flares of the mighty, bizarre things that the Ringo and Trump have had going for a long time from Carnegie Mellon and so forth. These twisted individuals can be identified, but they have wanted to fragment the golem by torturing the brain. They've implanted it so that the evidence comes out in such a way that they can make versions of it. Okay, but the evidence is in cold blood. It has there's a smoking trail of negligence. So, police officers have to get off their tails and stop being afraid of past negligence. Marge Peckman needs to hammer a gavel and say, I was wrong about CO2-623. And I must admit, she said I wouldn't have jurisdiction. Well, look, you're letting the gangsters in the streets of Seattle have jurisdiction. You can have that kind of jurisdiction by getting out on the street and saying no. Now, I think that the people in the state of Washington realize that the palace is pulling strings and that they think they have these Superman tats with all of the programs for the zombies and people like Penis Gabriel. The Zappas hated their fans. We're talking about hate criminals there. They're not people we can depend on. They're not people we can hang our hats on. Having their autographs is meaningless. It's like lining up and asking for the autographs of the people who were behind 911, because that's what happened. So the idea that I have is very simple. To get professionals to work on the evidence properly. To get investigators to request warrants against those who are guilty and arrest perpetrators. I don't think that's that far-fetched. And I think the brothers from the other movie should say to the people real change, get off Jimmy Carrey's ass and stop threatening him, because he's been trying to protect us all along. So there's your tape. That's what I think the police should do.